Here's what I'm working on. I'm working on being a river that runs its way into the ocean and not being a river that gets stuck in that smaller, that narrower stream. I get stuck somewhere along the way. I've gotten stuck somewhere along the way plenty of times. And it's because I immerse myself in the same rivers without ever allowing them to make their way to the oceans. And the oceans are the spaces and places where the possibilities expand. The possibilities enlarge. The potential becomes bigger. But when you're stuck in the same pot, you never spell the word potential out. When you're running in the same river, you struggle to get to the ocean. When that river either runs dry, gets soaked up by the heat of the summertime, or that river gets blocked off by maybe a landslide, dries up, turns that water into mud. Maybe just a bunch of trees fall into that river and form a sort of dam and keeps the majority of that. And there are animals that create these dams too, these natural dams. And also man creates these dams, that keep water from reaching where it could naturally go. And for me, one of the things that has occurred, I went on what I call my spirit walk. Went on my spirit walk 2 days ago, and I had kind of been taking a pretty typical path with very small deviations to get to kind of do my 20-25 mile walk. And this time I actually went somewhere completely different, took a completely different route, and it gave me a completely different experience and a different reality. And sometimes it's like when you're going to work or something like that, or you're going somewhere that you've gone to before, and so you because you've been there so many times, or you've gone there so many times, you get used to the routes that take you there, and you find the one route or two routes or a few routes that successfully take you to that place, and so you get used to you get used to taking those routes. You get used to taking those routes, you get used to it. And because you get so used to taking those routes, your mind starts to go in rote. You know what I mean? Like it just gets into rote. It gets into when you're in school and you learn by rote, it just means the same thing gets said and said and said until you can repeat that very same thing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that because you can repeat it, you've actually received it and can apply it outside the context that you've heard it in. And that's kind of what happens. Like you get so used to a certain rhythm that your mind gets locked in a certain rhythm, and then you can't you get thrown off when the beat changes, and the beat will change. The beat will change. So I'm looking at things, and I've been oscillating, between two rivers in my life, two places, and I'm starting to see that these two rivers, they're not leading me to the ocean. Not anymore. I'm not able to explore anymore on these two rivers, these two routes. I've gotten too used to them. I've gotten too used to these rhythms. And I've gotten so used to staying in this river that I have, and then sometimes, that's the other thing, sometimes you are the thing that is supposed to flow through that river, and you're not the river itself, but you get stuck somewhere. You get stuck, maybe you're getting stuck in the midst of those trees that have formed kind of a dam, and you're becoming a part of the thing that is blocking the flow. Sometimes you become, maybe you're, you got stuck somewhere in the depths of that same river, of that same routine, to the point that you're no longer thinking anymore. You're just kind of going in autopilot. There's all kinds of things that occur that kind of bring you to that stuckness. And it's funny because in water parks there's this thing called the lazy river, right? You have like that, and that's kind of like a river that you just kind of lie in, and it just takes you around in circles, just circles you and circles you. And sometimes there's that too. There's the lazy rivers that don't work, where like you get so stuck in the flow that like you get so used to it. And that's just where you choose to stay. Maybe you choose to stay running your route around the river, gridlocked in that same pattern of thinking, that same pattern of doing, the same pattern of activity, of even feeling. Maybe the energy is going in the same motions over and over again, and so you're going through the motions over and over again. So this stuff that I've been working through in myself is I think it's a I've had some lazy rivers running through me, because we're more than one thing, and there's more than one river to the ocean, right? But maybe you're taking that one river too many times, or you're taking that two or few rivers that you have gotten used to, and those routes no longer lead you there, And the other aspect of it too is perhaps they were never meant to lead you there, right? Maybe they lead to lakes, not oceans, or ponds and not oceans. So you end up in a place where somehow you end up in a pond, just kind of pontificating and pondering on the bigger ocean. But that pond is not connected to the bigger ocean, neither is that lake. That whatever it takes to go to that ocean is not in the motion that you've been going through. It's not in that lazy river. It's circling you. It's not in those routes. Those routes take you to the same places, and you know what those places are and what they look like. This is what I've been working through in myself. And so what does one do? What does one do when they realize that where they live is landlocked, right? Like their lives are landlocked. Like you're meant to go to the ocean, or you feel called to go to the ocean, or you desire to get to the ocean, a possibility of who you could become, of your potential, but you are landlocked. What does one do, right? Well, it's interesting. Like I had these turtles when I was a kid. Indigo and some other, I can't remember the name of both of them. One of them name was Indigo. But anyway, they grew, and we had them in these tanks for a while, and they grew and they grew, and they got to a place where like clearly they weren't fitting in the tanks, like clearly. And so there was a canal by our house, and we took them out and we dumped them into that canal, right? Because there was no way that they were going to get there, or it would have been far more difficult to get there if they had to, go there on their own. So we had to kind of carry them into that pond. And I think if you want to get beyond that type of a setup, it requires. But yeah, and it's interesting because I was always curious about like what would have happened if they had taken that journey on their own. Because sometimes there are no bridges there. Sometimes, I did this thing years and years ago. I interviewed a bunch of entrepreneurs. I didn't do anything with it. It was just for myself. And I took this notebook and I just asked them advice that has helped them get to where they are, and advice that is helping them get to where they're going. And one guy, when I asked him, said, I'm gonna give you a kind of an age-old advice, something that has been said, but I'm gonna flip it. And he goes, they say, don't burn bridges. What I'm gonna add to that is don't burn bridges unless you want to swim the rivers. Like, don't burn a bridge unless you want to swim the river. And that stuck with me. That stuck with me deeply. Because, sometimes the bridges don't quite lead us where, sometimes the bridge is not going to lead you where you actually want to go. Because that bridge is locked between two places. It's locked between two places, And I think I have been kind of on these bridges, locked between two different places, like in a physical sense, and in terms of just a lot of rhythms in my life. And sometimes you've got to burn the bridge if you want to swim the river. No one's gonna burn the bridge for you. If you get in an Uber, there's only so many routes that Uber can take. It's not gonna take you through the ocean. You know what I mean? Even if you tell that driver to go there, you have to swim that river. If you wanna. And it may not be a river that you swim across to the other side. Maybe you swim down the river or up the river to get to the larger body of water, to get to the larger being you've wanted to embody and become in your life. This is what I have been working through. By the way, when I say you, it's not necessarily literally you. Though if it connects to you that way, cool. But this is what I've been working through. I've been taking these different rivers in my life, hoping that they would lead to the ocean. But these rivers have been more like bridges that go between one place and another. And it seems that neither place has been taking me to the space that I would desire. And so, part of going where I desire is following that desire and following that energy and in the motion that it wants to go into. And that ocean might mean jumping off the bridge, jumping off the bridge of everything that that is. Some of that might lead you to places that you don't know. And when I decided to go a different route, with some encouragement of a friend, 2 days ago when I went on this, I do these spirit walks. I went about a little over 30 miles that day. I typically stay in the 20s, but I went further. I was able to go farther. I think part of what allowed me to go farther was that I took a different route, and that route inspired me further. And that's sometimes it's as simple as that. Sometimes it's as simple as that. When you're stuck, because I personally have wasted all kinds of resources because I never resourced them, you know, because I cut those resources off from the source of them, you know, the original source. And the resource is not a resource if it doesn't reconnect you to the source, you know, if you're not again sourced. So I've cut off and cut down a lot of resources that I've had because I haven't taken them to the places where they could be replenished. You know, if you're walking a desert or you know, a place, you're walking and you have a bottle of water, and you spend enough time drinking that water without going back to a well or running into a well, you know, that oh well, right? Like, you know, it's not gonna just magically refill. And I think in the same way, it's until you can reconnect back to the wells, and reconnect to the bigger oceans, and that's the idea, right? Like, it's the hope is you get to oases along the way, and sometimes the route that you're taking are take you away from those possible oases, those possible spaces that can give you the true space that you need. And I think, like that turtle, it's like I've been hoping to get carried somewhere along the way. And there's sometimes where you just gotta walk the land that's been locking you, you know, to get to the ocean that can unlock you. You've got to walk. you gotta break the landlocks in your life. You know, when you're trying to get to the ocean, when you're trying to see what's on the other side of the sea. You know, something that, you know, Game of Thrones recently just ended. And I think about Game of Thrones. Whether you watch this when, you know, Game of Thrones has, in this time period where, like, I'm in, the Game of Thrones ended, or if it's later on. But, you know, the last episode, the littlest one, the littlest Stark, you know, says, I can't go, you know, the three siblings are sitting there, and she looks at both of them and says, I can't go with either of you. I want to go wherever, essentially she says, I want to go wherever the maps stop. That's where I want to go. As far as the maps have taken us, I want to go whatever is beyond that. And I think that's a key. It's like when you're stuck on the mapped out route, that's what the lazy river is. It's a circular mapped out route. There's nothing, it doesn't take you anywhere beyond itself. And you want to take routes that will take you want to run through rivers that will run you beyond their legs, you know? You want to find rivers that lead you beyond themselves. And whatever those routes are, whatever those habits are, you know, that's what I'm working on in myself right now. Is I'm looking at some of the routes I've been on. I'm looking at the paths I've taken. I'm looking at where they've landed me, and I'm looking at how they've landlocked me at times. And I'm seeking a way to unlock and not be landlocked. I'm seeking paths that'll take me to the ocean. And sometimes those paths have to be carved out. Sometimes they're not on the route. Sometimes they're outside of the maps. And the maps can only lead you to the fringes of those possibilities. And the maps aren't just the maps of things that you know. They're the maps of things that other people know too. It's the maps of what your friends might know, what your family might know. And again, when I say you, I'm talking to myself. You know, it's those maps as well. If you want to tap into something that is bigger than where you are, you've got to go farther than where you've been. and sometimes farther than where others have been. You can't just retrace the same routes. It's like having a picture made, like one of those color-in pictures. You know, someone gives you a picture and says, color this in. Yeah, you might find unique colors and ways to fill that picture in, but that picture is not one that you've made, right? And it's not one that's going to it's not going to reflect the picture in yourself, like the picture within you, the bigger picture that you're attempting to pursue. This is what I'm working on. Like, this is what I've been working on, and what I'm walking on today is breaking the patterns, is breaking out and away from the same days and the same times and the same routes and the same rivers to nowhere, you know? I'm seeking the ocean. I'm seeking the ocean, and in order to get there, I have to be open to both routes that I don't know, because perhaps there are some routes on maps that can lead me to those fringes, and I have to be open to making those my own routes, to creating my own picture to color in. And that's the bigger picture. That's the bigger picture. That's what I am seeking to do, what I've struggled to do. And I don't know where you actually fit into this, which is why I keep U-turning it back to myself. You know, when I say you, it's more like a U-turn and less of me looking at you per se. What's beyond the map? What's beyond the map? You know, that's the thing about maps. The maps are about awareness. And, you know, much like those video games where, like, there are certain things that you're not aware of on the map. Your map doesn't get filled out until you take those routes. But that's the thing. It's not just the fill-in that I'm looking for. It's not just the coloring in of the picture. It's the creating of the picture. It's not just, you know, the maps that are in those games. It's about creating a new game. And, you know, it's not just about wanting to have stories like those folks that I've seen in movies and in books and in things that allow me to look at myself. It's about creating that character within me, in and of itself. It's the rivers that lead to the oceans. It's the rivers that open up doors to explore the unseen. And I think that's what it is. I desire to open up doors to the unseen, to what I haven't seen. Yet I'm staying around and sticking into the same scenery. And that seems to me to be an elementary mistake. It's basics that I've already learned. It's a base that I've already built out of. So that's what I'm seeking right now, is to flow towards a bigger ocean, to go somewhere that I haven't been, to begin new. And yeah, to play in a different ground. and don't think I'm gonna find it where I am now. It's beautiful is where that is. That's where I'm at, and I thought I'd just share it.